Now stay tuned to the following radio broadcast.
You're listening to the Victory Station, AM 1360. We're glad you chose us. Thank you.
It's Impact with the Florida Star, the largest, oldest, and most read African American newspaper in Northeast Florida and South Georgia. And now, here's the host, the publisher of the award-winning Florida Star, Clara McLaughlin.
This is Opio. You're tuned into Impact. We got a wonderful show lined up for you today. We got Theodore Jones, and he is going to talk about the first printing of the Florida Star newspaper right here on Impact.
I ain't being recorded yet, is it?
You are being recorded right now. All right. And so this gentleman right here, this very young gentleman, comes into the office of the Florida Star. He said he helped print the first Florida Star newspaper. When we go out and we dump those papers out to hundreds of places around the city, we always hear people say, I got my first job here. And we've been around 66 years, 1951. Tell us your name, and you did the first Florida Star?
Yes, my name's Theodore Jones. I was attending Edwards College, January 1951, right after I finished down in high school. And our instructor during that time was Mr. Joshua Williams. He was the instructor in the printing department, because at Edwards College during that time they would print their own catalogs, sent out to different schools for students to look over. And during that time, Mr. Simpson started the Florida Star, and I was in the printing shop helping out printing, and I had the pleasure of helping assist print the first Florida Star at Edwards College, 1951. And it was very interesting, along with Mr. Williams and Mr. Rick Austin. He was a very intellectual man, and also Mr. Williams, he was, I believe during that time, he was a Hampton Institute graduate.
We won't hold that against them. That's a H-I, not a H-U. We won't hold that against them.
Hampton
Howard University is a H-U. Hampton Institute is H-I. Yeah. We always have this little friendly little thing between Hampton and Howard about who's the real H-U.
Definitely, yeah.
So who was Mr. Simpson? What kind of guy was Mr. Simpson, the owner, the founder of the Florida Star?
Mr. Simpson, you could tell he was a very educated man. He was a nice man, and he spoke well, and I like being around Mr. Simpson, because he always had something good to say. And him being the driving force behind the Florida Star at its beginning. And he was easy to talk with, and he knew what he wanted to put in the paper. And he always instructed, well, I want this way, I want this that way, and always run off a proof. And first thing he wanted to see what's going to be printed and how it's going to be printed, because he know what he wanted in the paper, and he get a draft of what's going to be in the paper. And along with Mr. Williams and Mr. Austin, they would carry out his wishes and get all the typesetting and put it on the press, which they had I can't call that press now, so. But anyhow, we get it laid all out and lay it all out on the press, and then start running copies off. And I liked printing during that time because my mother started printing, and I took after her in printing because 1945, after the Second World War, uh, they had all the veterans during that time. They could apply for a vocational school, and printing. The printing instructor at Old Standard School during that time was Mr. Sweet, and she, not being a veteran, but somehow she was interested in printing, and she applied to go to Stanton with the veterans, and she learned printing. And then I learned it a lot from her. And then when I went to Stanton School in 1948, I, under Mr. Sweet, learned a lot more about printing. And consequently, when I went to Edwards College, me knowing what I know, I joined right in and did a lot of printing there.
So tell me a little bit about what they were printing in the paper during that time. You remember the first issue and what they talked about, what they had in there, what kind of ads they had in there?
I really don't remember any of the ads or anything, but most it was community orientated during that time. Mostly focusing on the black community. It was a community a paper, and it had national news, church news, different things concerning the community.
Did you see some of the luminaries, like A. Philip Randolph, the politician? A lot of people talk about the politician Johnson.
Yeah, it did. It had a lot of political stuff in there, and during that time, I remember vividly, man by the name of Mr. Hawkins. He wanted to apply to go to the University of Florida Law School. And during that time, for some reason, I don't know how, but the law school at Florida A&M was abolished somehow. And that was, for a while, that was the headline news of the, that was the headline thing of the Florida Star during that time, because Mr. Hawkins, and every time that he turned down, he couldn't go to the University of Florida because it was an integration at that time, and so the University of Florida wouldn't accept him at their school. But if I vividly can remember, the state of Florida would pay for him to go to a school out of state, probably in a northern state, maybe somewhere around New York, New Jersey, or something like. The state of Florida was willing to spend money to send him to another state where integration was, that he could go to law school. And that's all I remember of it right at the present time.
You remember anything about Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and how the paper related to them, or the community?
During that time, I was going to school. I don't believe Martin Luther King was even was, mixed up in the civil rights.
Right, because he came around about 55.
About 55 when Dr.
Montgomery
King was
thing,
involved in the civil rights movement due to the fact of
Rosa Parks.
the Rosa Parks, on Montgomery's bus boycott.
That's it.
He was
And so that got big. The Montgomery bus boycott was big.
the Montgomery boycott was big, and the Florida Star ran that news exclusively a lot about the Montgomery boycott during that time and the civil rights movement.
Now, what was the business like? Did the paper make money? Did you receive the phone calls from the people? Were people paying the ads? Were there paper boys delivering the paper? How was all that done?
Yeah, that was they had paper boys delivering the paper during that time. Of course, I bought several of them during that time. They had one young man I know that was delivered paper. He did it for a long time. I can't think of his name right now, but it was his arm. He had I think his right arm was he had affliction in his right arm, but he worked for the Florida Star, and he would be going around selling papers. People. I think during that time, you could get a Florida Star paper for 10, 15 cents or something like that. At least a quarter you could get a Florida Star paper.
Now, tell me about the Vietnam War, the Korean War, any of that type of stuff that was going on, or what you heard about World War II and the two V's with the two peace signs.
Well, during that time, the Second World War was over. Because the beginning of the Second World War, I think the armistice was signed in 1945,
right.
1945.
But those guys were veterans, and they were young veterans that were walking around during that time. That was 10 years, right?
There was some things in the paper concerning the veterans, and then when the Korean War came around, there was some things in the Florida Star concerning.
And that's the 50s.
It wouldn't say, it was some write-ups in the paper about that, but it wasn't say anything that exclusively, in the paper, but it was always something mentioned in there concerning the Korean War.
Well, tell me about this. When I go out, people say, man, the Florida Star used to have these crazy headlines and made people want to buy the paper.
Well, no, they wasn't crazy. I wouldn't consider them crazy headlines because that was...
They said they were catchy. People always talk about the catchy headlines.
They had something to attract your attention.
Right.
And it was news. It was news concerning the community, right, and things going on exclusively, mostly in the black community, and different things going on in Georgia, Mississippi, and things wherein the inequities that was say done to black people, which is nothing that I'm not bragging about, because it was just during that time, I guess a lot of people considered it was just something that was going on. But in 1955, when Dr. King came along, and then the sit-ins and things, demonstration, where we could get our equal rights. And the Florida Star was definitely behind that.
This is Opio. I'm speaking to Theodore Jones, and we're talking about the history of the Florida Star newspaper. Y'all stay tuned. We got some more interesting and incredible information right here on Impact.
Do you know what media received the first Eagle Award by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office for being the most factual? The Florida Star. Do you know which media solely addresses issues of concern for African Americans? The Florida Star. Do you know which media carries local, state, national, and international news regarding African Americans? The Florida Star. Do you know the only media that carries a special section for our youth at home? And the schedule for 3 black television networks. Now you know the Florida Star. Northeast Florida's largest, oldest, and most read African American newspaper, serving since 1951 in more than 200 locations. The Florida Star. News you can use. News you can trust. The people's choice. Striving to make a difference. Subscribe today. Call 766-8834. That's 766-8834. Pick up the Florida Star at over 200 locations. Or to have it delivered, call 766-8834. The Florida Star. Speaking truth to power.
Bloody Sunday is the walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, right? So let's talk about the Axe Handle Saturday.
Axe Handle Saturday.
Jacksonville.
That was headline news. That was headline news. And if I can vividly remember, the Florida Star carried that, and they had some pictures of Axe Handle Saturday, and the demonstration was down at McClory's, and it was called 5 and 10 cent store. Then it was the corner, I believe it. The store was on the corner of, if I'm not, Hogan and Monroe Street. I believe that's where it was, right across from Hemming Park, and had a demonstration down there, and the whites, from what I understand, went to Sears Roebuck. They was down on Bay Street. Tell me, from what I understand, they went down and bought every axe hound in Sears Roebuck, and came back to the park and started beating white people, black people with the axe hound. That's why they call it axe hound Saturday. And then it was really an all-out thing during that time, because a lot of young people, they fought back. A lot of them fought back valiantly. And if I can recall, during that time, I don't, from the way I feel about it, I think the police department and sheriff department could have did a lot more to protect the community during that time in that situation. But
well, they say the Boomerang Gang came and kind of won the day almost.
Yeah, the Boomerang Gang. Then they, like I said, they fought back. They didn't just stand up and just let them beat her with the bat. It was really an all-out riot, and I guess during that time, I think you remember, from what I understand, during that time, Sheriff Glover was in that area during that time, and
he said he worked at a Morrison.
Yeah, he told the story, that which is not a story, that one of the white policemen told him, you better get out of here and go home, because if you stick around here, you're going to get hurt. And he just tell the story, which I've heard him say, that he ran all the way home, and that really put it in him to go ahead on and get his education, and that's how he wanted to be a law enforcement officer. law enforcement officer.
You remember the outcome of that? Was there any talks after that on what happened and who was at fault and who could have done better and any briefings?
Well, I've heard that the police department, sheriff department could have protected the black children and people that was downtown doing that. They could have did a better job in protecting them because, but they didn't. They didn't. And some of them just stood by and looked and watched, you know. But that's the way it was during that time, and
now tell me about were there artists that come to town that they would cover? Some of the musicians and comedians and so on, actors
that came to town.
Black actors and all the black artists and entertainers. And how did the Florida Star cover it?
Oh, the Florida Star covered those good. Oh yeah, you had a lot of well-known artists come to town during that time. I can remember, say, in the 40s, even before the Florida Star started, and right after began, and right after began, a lot of artists came to town, such as James Brown, Dinah Washington, Cab Calloway, Billy Eckstein, all those singers and entertainments. The Florida Star was, you know, behind them a lot, and promoted them that they were in town, because during that time, most of it was at the Two Spot nightclub, and the Two Spot nightclub during that time was real popular. Real popular nightclub, Two Spot nightclub was real popular. I wasn't old enough to go to the Two Spot nightclub, but when I went to the Two Spot nightclub, I finished high school, and I went to the Two Spot nightclub. During that time, Florida A&M, every Christmas, Florida A&M, they had a band called the Famcy Collegian, which is, and they every Christmas they would come to be at the Two Spot nightclub, and a lot of young people would go out there. And so when I was finished high school, my senior year, I got permission from my mother and father that I wanted to go, because Famcy Collegians was going to be at the Two Spot nightclub. I think I was 19 years old, and they told me, yes, you can go. First, I asked my father, could I go? And he told me, he said, ask your mama. My mother said, ask your daddy. And so after a while, he agreed, he said, yeah, go ahead. And I went to the first time I went to the Two Spot nightclub with Famcy Collegian. And I had a date. Girl that I took to the prom. And me and her went to the out to see, to the dance. Famcy Collegian, they call it FAMU now, but during that time it was Famcy, Florida A&M College.
What was EWC like during that time?
EWC was a good school during that time. Only you could EWC wasn't a 4-year college during that time. You go to EWC for 2 years, and then you had to go to another school, get your other 2 years. There was liberal arts school during that time. My first year at EWC, I did good. I had some good grades, A and B's, and then when I got to be from a freshman to a sophomore is next, I didn't go to class much. I was more interested in printing.
Right.
And I didn't go to class. I wanted to stay in the print shop all the time and work in the print shop and the instructor.
And about what year was this? This is 1951?
That was in 1952 then.
Okay.
Like I said, first year I did good, A's and B's. And then my sophomore year, I got F's and I's. Incomplete and failure.
And why did you want to stay in the printing shop so much?
Because I was interested in printing. I was really interested in printing. And after
because printing was a big deal. That was like the internet is right now. It's like social media now.
Printing was big in our community because you had such printing as Lucas. He had a place there on Moncrief. They were good printers. You probably know Mr. Lucas. I don't know whether you know them, but right there at the railroad in Moncrief, he had a place right there. And a place out east, Mr. Cooper, he was a printer. My mother had opened up a printing shop, and I did a lot of the work in there. She did a lot of work, because on special on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we did a lot of printing. A souvenir book, film programs, letterheads, stationery. I did all that in one Dr. I can't think. He opened up an office there on King Road. I can't call his name right now, but when he started opening up his practice, his sister was named Miss James. Anyhow, I did all the printing for him. Letterhead, stationery, receipt books, and everything. I did all the printing for him.
Now tell me this. I saw a story. My students did in an organized crime class, they did a thing on Bolita, the numbers. And I saw a front page piece that the Florida Star did on Bolita. And there's a lady right now. She is the daughter of the big policy, the big insurance guy. She's writing a book right now on Bolita. Talk about the numbers game. That's not a lottery now.
Oh yes, Bolita, sure. Bolita was a big thing in Jacksonville during that time. Sure, they had what they call Cuba.
Right.
Then you had a stock and bond. I caught that a couple of times. The bond for 25 cents, you get $100.
And there you have it. Mr. Theodore Jones was there when we printed the first copy of the Florida Star newspaper. And y'all make sure y'all go pick up a copy of the Florida Star newspaper, as well as watch this interview on Star TV. Got to get out of here. This is Opio Saccone. We will see you next time on Impact.